Restart. Hey guys, Dark Humility here in PD2 Season 11, playing my solo self-found hardcore Blade Sin. Finally found time to play it again today, so we're going to start smashing those farming areas. But before we get even more into it, I wanted to make this video to show you guys what an early mid-game Blade Sin looks like, and also give you guys a lot of tips about what's important on this character and just in general. What to farm with it and whatnot, and how to get it going like this. Since this is solo self-found, you can believe me, I didn't actually, trade for any of this or anything. No trading is allowed. So you can definitely do this yourself. You just have to kind of know what to do. And so that is where this comes in. I'll be explaining, showing stats, skills, mercenary, and gear for this point in the game. And then, of course, I'll also go over some demos in Hell, so I'll show you guys the Hell farming areas that this level of a build can currently do. You could probably farm some really low-level maps at this point as well. That's probably also possible, but we'll stay out of those for now until we get a little bit stronger. Also, LOD areas will probably be more efficient until we get more strong as well, so we'll get a little stronger first, and then we'll try to jump into some maps, absolutely. So, without further ado, stats that are important. For the most part, strength, you just want enough to wear your gear. Claws can require a decent amount of strength though, so keep that in mind. It does help your damage a bit though, so that is one thing. Blade Fury does use attack rating, so you're definitely going to want that. So does Blade Sentinel, and Blade Sentinel is your single target boss killer. It stacks on bosses, and if you have shadows or even multiple shadows, they use Blade Sentinel a lot better than they use Blade Fury, where they can only fire off one at a time. Blade Sentinel will make them melt in seconds, so that's definitely really key.
I'll be your best friend in this.
Anyway, you're gonna need both. Attack rating is important though, so you see I have almost 9,000 AR. That's pretty good. There's a lot of different ways to hit the AR. Very early game, I was actually using Blessed Aim Act 2 Mercenary because you get a lot of free AR, and usually you struggle with AR really early game, unless you put on AR rings and pick up all the AR charms. That can help too, but that is pretty key. I don't struggle with AR anymore though, so we're using a different Mercenary, but I'll talk about that. Blessed Aim, of course, also gives Deadly Strike in PD2 though, so Deadly Strike is very good on this build, so it's not a bad aura to use on an initial Mercenary. Max Block is really good at this point in the game when you're in early Hell, even late Nightmare, when you start to farm those Nightmare cows that you always should be farming on every character, no matter what. Particularly if it's solo self-found, but even if you get pushed in a group, going back to Nightmare Cows can be really effective for that early farming, and it's very fast, particularly if you already a high level like 80 after you push the Hell Bale in a group, and then just start farming Nightmare Cows. So you should always be doing that, even if it's solo or not. It's really good. You fill up that charm inventory full of amazing life and res charms. The rest of your points go into life. You don't want to put any points into energy. But like I said, Dex helps with AR. Dex is needed to wear claws, and Dex can get you that max block. We are going max block here. This is hardcore. If you're playing a softcore, it's not as necessary, but it makes it feel a lot more smooth to jump into monsters with Dragonflight anyway. But of course, you can also wear dual claws and not have max block, but have good block. Either good block or max block, though, is, in my opinion, required to make this build not feel like trash. So definitely consider one of those. If it's not max block, claw block can be decent. We'll talk about how 2 weapons can help, but we're not quite there yet. Res, of course, is very important. Particularly on hardcore, you don't want to... res is just insanely important for defenses. Even a little bit overstacked is pretty nice here, because if you get lower resisted or conviction, you don't get insta-killed by something that does a lot of damage. So, it's good stuff. Poison res is the least important of all the res, so 51 is fine unless you're farming Andy, and then you should probably have max in case you, decide to destroy you. So, Demon Mommy is dangerous, but yeah, there you go. DR, of course, you're going to want as much DR as you can get. At this point in the game, it can be tough, though, but there's a lot of things you could potentially find, like String of Ears, Rock Stopper, Rock Fleece, I got really lucky. Off Nightmare Bale, I found Shaft Stop. So Shaft Stop is, well, that's potentially an endgame armor in hardcore on a lot of builds. So that's not a problem. It's not like the greatest roll in the Shaft Stop, but it is a pretty good, you know, it's a Shaft Stop and it's not terrible. 22%, pretty insane. But even if you're not using that, it's okay. There's a lot of ways to get damage reduction. Also, putting extra points in a fade is a very key way to do that as well. You're going to want, of course, some attack speed with fade is important to make sure you're firing as many shurikens as possible, as fast as possible using Blade Fury. You will notice that you're firing less if your attack speed drops too low. So you want to either use faster claws and have like more attack speed, or you want a lot of attack speed with slower claws that do more damage. As long as it kind of looks like this though, it's going to be fine no matter what. You notice that it looks the same pretty much whether it's blade. So that's kind of how you want it to look, like this. If you're firing slower than that, it's not good. Okay. That's all you really need to know about attack speed. Attack speed's not insanely important, but you do want to be firing pretty fast there, like that. You don't need cast speed. You don't really need that much attack speed at all. It's almost like Whirlwind, but not quite. You do need some attack speed to fire, at least at that speed there. That's kind of what you're going to be looking for. No problem, guys. And then, of course, attack rating once again is pretty good. Hit recovery is good, but since I have max block, it's not insanely essential. So most of the time I'm going to be blocking and not being put in hit recovery. Also, even with lower FHR, assassins have good frames for block and FHR, and block rate, if you have max block, is pretty important. You want to be hitting 32 on an assassin if you can. We're doing that alone though with just the shield, 40% faster block rate, so our block rate is really good. We're not going to get block locked very easily on this character, so that is an important mechanic to be aware of. Deadly Strike is really good. We don't currently have any, but it would be good to start getting some. If I could find like a High Lords or something, that'd be pretty bonkers. Probably start wearing that right away. Of course, we do have the built-in critical strike on Claw and Dagger Mastery, so that's not bad. So that means a lot of our hits are doing that anyway. Now, Leech is kind of important. Without Mana Leech or Life Leech or Sustain off something like Phoenix, the Sustain doesn't feel that great. Getting high Life Leech and high damage is going to make this build feel a lot better, and just any kind of Mana Leech at all will prevent constantly running out of mana. So you don't really need a lot of Mana Leech, you just need some, just somewhere. And then Life Leech is pretty insane, so that's actually pretty good that we have 16 on this setup, and it feels really good to have 16 and whatnot. And mana per kill and can also be good, and so can life per kill, so those can also be nice because you do have good AoE clear on this ability. If you didn't see my late game Blade Fury video from this season, you'll see just how powerful it can get this season with it bouncing off of everything, and you'll see how that works pretty shortly. When you do LOD farms, you don't get MF bonuses like you would when you farm maps, so you should definitely consider getting as much Magic Find as possible on your gear. The Mercenary can also add to that if he gets the kill, but otherwise it doesn't matter what he is put on. So yeah, almost 250 at the moment. You know, it's pretty decent for like early mid game. Definitely pushing our way up with more drops. And then skills. So in order, you're going to want to max Blade Fury, and then you max Claw and Dagger Mastery, and then you max Sentinel, and then you max Blade Shield, and then you max Fate. The one pointers that can be good though are Shadow Master, Venom. Shadow Master, by the way, having more defensive capability than Warrior. Since unless you're using Blade Sentinel to kill single targets a lot, Master will survive better than Warrior. I do have a lot of plus skills on a Claw swap though, so that's why I'm actually only using Warrior at the moment, but normally that's not really the case. 1 point Venom isn't bad. It's a pretty, I mean, you're already going to hit Fate anyway, so you can get like 100 free poison damage over like 1 second, so that's pretty nice. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about Venom too much. It's not really that essential to your damage, particularly this season with you getting 100% of weapon damage. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then you want 1 point into Dragonflight as well. You might get Dragonflight off a claw or a dagger, which you should be using, but currently with this current weapon, I am not. So we do have 1 point into
I can already tell that I'll be your best
Dragonflight.
friend in this forsaken camp.
Of course, I also want to show you guys this weapon for a couple reasons, but yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty good. Let's go to the Mercenary. So the Mercenary battle orders is just really good for early game in general. You don't have CTA yet. You don't have Call to Arms. So getting that extra life is good, particularly on hardcore. But the really big thing about the Whirlwind Act 5 Mercenary is that he sustains well, and then on top of that, he casts Battle Cry. And Battle Cry lowers the physical res of all monsters around you. And he does cast it pretty frequently, so even if you haven't found or traded for items like Cyclopean Roar or Vile Husk or any Amp or anything, his gear is actually really primitive. And you'll see that, like, basically the keys are here is to get some kind of source of life leech, lots of life leech, try to get a weapon with decent damage. This does meet that qualification, but hopefully we can find a weapon with more damage soon. Or we can find 2 runes, because I'm going to need another one to put it up. One thing to note is that in PD2, by the way, rares are insane, potentially, so you should definitely be picking these up. You can see also crafts can be insane. This is a safety craft armor, and it doesn't even have good enhanced defense, but it got good value. I just found an F blue armor on the ground. It could be an F rare armor too. It could be whatever. F items are great on the merc because they don't lose durability. And you can just kind of put them on there, and you can see this gives more life leech. It has like quad res, so he's got a lot of life leech, quad res. He's got some damage. He's got decent res, and he survives pretty well. He can actually tank a lot of Diablo hits, so that's not bad. And yeah, so one thing to note though, one thing that will be good to transition into is if we find an amp sword for him. I'll give him like a Vile Husk or like a Gavel of Pain any day, if we can find one. Trying to think. Act 1 Mercenaries though, not great. They kind of die when you jump in with Dragonflight, so that's not amazing. Also Act 4, kind of the same problem. Probably die to elemental damage in that case because he has bone armor, but still. One thing to note though is we actually have found a Reaper's Toll at this point. So I found a Reaper's Toll. I actually do plan on maybe going back to the Act 2 Mercenary if I end up using this claw. So this claw means I'll lose my decrep on my current claw, which I'll talk about in a bit. But what this claw does though is this claw's got just huge damage, and if I upgrade it again to its elite counterpart, it's going to get huge damage with 300% ED. And it also has Deadly Strike and Claw and Dagger Mastery and 1 point Dragonflight, so this thing could be nasty. And the Frost Nova on striking is amazing too, so once again, this is a rare, and I found this in Nightmare, mind you. You could, at the end of Nightmare, you can start finding Cruel bases now in Season 11, and so it doesn't matter what physical damage build you're going, you really want to check all those rare weapons for whatever your class is. In this case, you're going to want Claws, because Claw and Dagger Mastery is just insane. Claws or daggers, and so that's what you're going to want to do, and it'll be pretty good that way if you do that. Anyway, so let's see. Let's go over our own gear though. So our own gear is pretty important. So this is, in my opinion, the best weapon you can use at this point in the game. I found an Eth Elite base, and you can find one pretty easily from either Pindleskin and Nightmare. Cows I don't think can drop one. I tried it like a ton of times. I don't think they drop the Elite bases. Or you could find it from Pit. And it just has to be Eth0 sockets or Eth3 sockets. And it could be any of the Eth Elite weapons, and it will do really well. With one of the slower ones, you might need more attack speed. This is one of the faster ones though, so you don't have to worry about that here. But it's definitely the case. And you can just use the Larzek quest on it, and the quest will get 3 sockets. Remember, the hammer will only give 1 socket, so the hammer only 1 sockets anything. So that is definitely something to take into account here. But Lawbringer is insane. The flat elemental damage does work on this build, by the way, from every source. So that means like those charms, you find like flat elemental, like I'll show you a good example here. 1 to 36 lightning, 4 to 8 cold damage, it's adding to your damage, and it helps you kill phys immunes as well. Like that's one too, really good for this build. 20 life, 1 to 37 light damage. I actually found that, it's kind of neat. Really good find there. But you can see that the flat damages, the flat elemental is very strong. The ED on Lawbringer is very good. I can
already tell that I'll be your best friend in this.
And you can put this in a claw. This even is a claw with 1 to Blade Fury on top of that, so that's actually really cool. And then one thing to note, of course, besides that as well, is that earlier in the game, so in the very beginning of the game, you can just keep finding rare claws that are higher bases that do more damage, and just keep upgrading your claws that way. And then once you get to like normal cows and beyond, you could find an exceptional white or ethereal claw, and you could make a also 3 sockets or 0 sockets as well, and you could make a pattern out of it. And pattern has a lot of flat elemental damage too, and it has ED. And that weapon will get you all the way through Nightmare. Once you get to the end of Nightmare, that's where you might want to try to upgrade that claw, or you might want to go to the Hell Pit to upgrade it to something like this. And this is going to be really insane. Decrep, by the way, this season, level 15 Decrep, if I'm not mistaken, is negative 15 enemy Phys Res. And that stat is very good for killing Phys immunes and other things stacked on top of the battle cry on the Act 5 Mercenary. And you'll be killing Phys immunes just fine, as I'll show in the demo. Hopefully we'll get some Phys immunes, and you'll see how that works. If it's just Amp, might be able to do it with Reapers, but it might be a little tougher, so it's a little tougher for sure. Once again, just armor. So I actually used Rattle Cage for a while after I made a stealth. I found Rattle Cage. Rattle Cage has enhanced damage. Enhanced damage in general is really good. Lionheart also has enhanced damage on armor. Durus would also be really good at this point in the game. I just found a shaft stop, so on hardcore SSF there's no way I'm not going to use a shaft stop, so this is a little unrealistic for this point, I would say, in the game, but and then I corrupted it for 2 sockets, so I mean it's pretty insane. That's why I'm mentioning some other armors you might want to look into. Even Gloom would be a pretty good armor too. Gloom is very nice. There's a lot of like really nice rune words that you could make in the beginning. I don't really think Treachery is all that good, because you don't really need, unless you have like a really slow claw, you might want to consider that. Plus skills do help on this build. They give you a lot of damage. So does ED on your on the weapon that you're using. And so does offhand ED. Max damage even helps out. Points into dex and strength help. Like so many things like add to the damage. Damage auras help. Negative Phys Res helps. One thing to note though is you lose an enormous amount of damage if you're not using a claw or a dagger. You might be looking at the weapon damage and thinking, oh man, I could just use a, I don't know, like I could use the Reaper's Toll, but you know, I'm going to show you something because this is very illustrative of this. So I think YouTube needs to see this because a lot of people are very confused about this on this build. It's not just 1 or 2 people, it's like a lot of people. So let me see, where's the Reapers here? Okay, so I'm going to show you guys something. So this is my damage. If I buff it real quick, I can show you. Alright, so this is my damage. So I put on the Reapers, and you see the Reapers is 44 to 520. Now at the very least that 520 you would think would absolutely crush the damage on the Lawbringer here. Uh-oh. Where did my damage go? Why did I lost 2,000 damage? How? Well, actually it's pretty simple. The problem is that this skill that I talked about in the skills section is insanely essential, and you see that 340% bonus damage. That's no joke. That's it's a huge amount of damage. So you really gotta respect that. You could use like a Cranium Basher at this point and probably do a little more damage, but you give up the shield and you give up the potential to have like skills on an offhand claw, and it's pretty big. So yeah. One thing to note here is an offhand claw can give you stats, for instance, that can help your damage. So you'll notice that if I put this claw in my offhand, right, I actually am gaining a little bit of damage if I put this eagle barb claw into the offhand. So you do that, and you'll notice I'm getting some damage. Now where that is probably coming from is the 2 to claw and dagger mastery. So an offhand claw can give you plus skills basically, but you only use 1 claw to attack on this build, so only 1 claw is ever necessary, which is why I'm using a rhyme plus a lawbringer. But you'll notice though, if you had like, I don't know, 3 claw dagger mastery, and you want to use claw block on softcore, you wanted more damage, the claw and dagger mastery can work. Deadly strike is a local stat though, so that's not going to really do anything. And since we're not using this weapon actively, neither will the Frost Nova on striking or anything. You can only use 1 weapon at a time. So this weapon is the active weapon. If I make this the active weapon, you can see it lowers my damage, but that's because it would need to be upgraded to an elite version like this one is. And then it could potentially win, which I think it would. So I actually want to try to use this and maybe use Reapers on a Mercenary on an Act 2 with Defiance, and then I can get more DR, might lose some health, but then I'll get Amp on the Mercenary. I won't have the Decrep or the Battle Cry anymore, but I'll have high level Amp, so that could be pretty nice. Either way though, it's kind of a lot of interesting things to think about at this point in the game. But you'll notice that Rhyme though, Rhyme is just insane. CBF. I don't have a Ravenfrost. I haven't found one, so it's SSF. We gotta find everything. Don't have it. We do have all res on this though. We have great block rate and we have block chance, and we do have magic find. So magic find, Rhyme is just kind of an all-around great shield on hardcore, particularly for builds that go in, and it makes it very easy. One thing to note is that not only do you want to pick up all the rare claws, you do also want to craft them as well. So if you find F blue claws, you should also be picking those up and then using like Terra Perfect Sapphire Jewel and upgrading them and trying for high ED claws. You really want enhanced damage. It's going to be the most important stat. One thing to note is you might be wondering, why am I using F claws? Well, F claws don't lose durability. So you don't lose durability either from Dragonflight or from Blade Shield or for Blade Fury. Dragonflight is a kick, by the way, so it should use it uses boot durability, so it's kind of interesting. Anyway, at least I believe so. I don't think you can use weapons. I don't think I've lost any durability off this thing. This is the exact amount I had when I created it, but yeah, so there's a lot of interesting points. Right now I'm just using an MF Ammy, and that's just how strong this can be. Damage wise though, if you have trap Ammy, like a 3 to trap Ammy would be big, so if I can find a 3 to trap MF Ammy, it'd be even bigger. I'm just greeting for magic find at this point in the game. You really want over 200 magic find minimum to start farming those strong LOD areas so you can get rich fast. That's how I would always say in Rags to Riches. Even my D2R series, definitely important. Even as you're progressing through the game, even when you do that Nightmare Cows farm, possibly Nightmare Eldritch and Pendle too, it really helps to be stacking perfect topazes, even if you have nothing else. Even if like you don't have a Tarn Helm, you don't have Scolders, it doesn't really matter. Like those things would be really good early game, but you really want to make sure you have MF. So I got lots of perfect topazes. This is a really cool helm. I actually replaced a peasant crown I found with this. It's minimum damage, dex, assassin skills, and really high res. And res is important, obviously. It's hard to get max res. There's a lot of helms you could use, though. All these stats help us out, though, defensively. You can see, though, once again, I have some Venom pre-buff Shadow Warrior claws on the offhands. I found this today, actually, pretty recently, a Drax. Really good for sustain. Once again, that life leech, life per kill. Even the strength helps with damage. It's kind of neat. Could also just swap out the strength for life, though, if I respect. I would need a respect, though. I don't know if I want to respect just for that, but I'll probably respect pretty soon. And then that's pretty good. The other thing though is like once we find soul drainers, negative fizz res is pretty key. So once again, that's why things like amp, battle cry, and decrep like on the weapon help a lot. One thing to note about decrep or frost nova too is great crowd control. It really prevents you from dying, and it makes it easy to kill things very safely. One thing I also forgot to mention, the Lawbringers, if you have negative target defense, you also don't need a crazy amount of attack rating, except for bosses. So like, this rune word is really crazy strong, honestly, at this point in the game. You just need a decent base. That's the hardest thing to do. I found a gold wrap. That attack speed is actually saving us here. We'd actually lose the rate at which we're firing our Blade Fury if I drop that at the moment, so I'd have to get it somewhere else if I lose it. Of course, it's MF as well. Nagel Ring, attack rating, and MF. Pretty solid stuff. It's a mana per kill as well. And then this is where we're getting the Mana Leech at the moment, also giving us res and attack rating and minimum damage, which once again, all the minimum, maximum damage, all the off-weapon ED, all the ED on the weapon itself, all of it improve your damage. But one thing to note is that once again, like I showed you with the two weapons, you don't get the damage from both weapons. Only one weapon operates at a time, but you can get plus skills on an offhand claw. So like, let's say I had like +7. Let's say I crafted a claw that was like +7. So I had like, I don't know, like 2 assassin skills, +1 on the corruption when I use a world stone shard. And then I crafted it with that like +1, the brilliant craft, or whichever one gives it. I think it's actually the, it's the MF craft, I think. Yeah, it gives like +1 skills. And then I also just got 3 to Blade Fury on it as well. I could use like a +7 claw on the offhand and make my damage a lot higher. Of course, Phoenix Shield is really good for this too, because it gives a ton of ED on the offhand. And that's why I'm using it in the end game setup, as if you watch that video. So yeah, you could definitely see how it kind of works. We got like MF, faster run walk, res in the boots. Ward traps or gores would be really good if we find those. You can see here, look at that, 17 max damage jewel. That could add to our damage, so that's kind of neat. But you'll notice that here I just go for like pretty much mostly damage, AR, life, res, that kind of stuff for the most part. Some faster run walk is good as well, particularly if you're not using burst of speed. And I think I went over most relevant things. I don't know, are there any other questions in the chat from the build? Anything maybe I should add to the YouTube guide you think that would be important for people to know? Fade definitely increases the resist all, gives us DR when we level it up more. That's what we're going to be maxing out next. We just finished maxing out all the blade synergies at level 81. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we'll get a curse duration reduction, we'll get more resist, we actually get every 2 hard points is 1% DR as well. So it's going to be good and pretty solid. And so yeah, once again, Shadow Master is better, but because I currently have these claws to pre-buff the warrior, I think it's going to get a lot more HP this way. So we're just going to use it like that. I did have that question in the chat, people asking about that. So when I max out Fade, definitely Fade. I'm on hardcore. You really want to make sure you're the one that can take the damage. And since we have max block, we can really take the damage. Alright, let's start demoing her out then. Looks like it's the next step and the last step of the mini guide and demo. I would say this is more in a mini guide though. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, so you guys can understand what to do. By the way, Laura is a great helm for super early game as well. And then, you know, I was using Ancient's Pledge for a bit. But yeah, plus skills give a lot of damage though, so it's not just ED. Trap skillers are better than max charms, by the way, so when you find those, you're going to want to use those as well. Just trying to fit as much info as I can on this build so people understand how to use it. But you can see she's very powerful. Even though a lot of her gear is pretty jank, it doesn't really matter too much. Some of it is better than others as well. But we're gonna farm the Hell Pit. I consider like early game the Pit to be really good. Besides, once you get out of Nightmare Cows, Nightmare Eldritch, Nightmare Shank, you should definitely go in the Pit. Particularly if you're looking for a base for the Lawbringer still, or if you just haven't crafted or found a high ED claw yet, which if you pick up all those rare claws, and you pick up the blue claws and the F blue claws, you definitely can. And keep in mind, those claws you can upgrade using the upgrade recipes. So it's very good stuff. But yeah, you can see we're pretty tanky though. Getting any amount of DR at all can help quite a bit. That's also why Defiance Act 2 Merc with the Reapers might be nice, because they'll get more ADR. They'll help us transition to maps a bit easier. Once you hit like 40% plus DR, mapping becomes a lot more safe on hardcore, so... But if you're playing softcore, you know, you could definitely map with 0 DR, and if you die every once in a great while, it's not a big deal. But yeah, you can see the pit though, it's pretty easy stuff. Just jump right into the monsters. You got a Shadow and a Mercenary to help protect you as well. Hopefully you can get more damage reduction and life and res on the Mercenary as well, and you can get him a better weapon soon. I talked about some of the possibilities for Act 5. For Act 2, the Reaper's Toll will be pretty big if I switch to the other claw and I'm not using Decrep. The problem with Decrep and Amp is they overwrite one another, so unless I can get the, yeah, they just overwrite one another, so kind of want two sources of negative Fizz res reduction right now, so the Mercenary plus myself is working pretty well. You can see we just slaughtered the pit, no problem. I didn't even get to hell that long ago. I actually just finished pushing like literally like an hour ago, so I mean it's pretty good. Another really good farm area for this character early game though, particularly if you get a decent claw base like I have, you could definitely consider farming the council, the high council here. You'll notice the more density there is, the more damage it does. That's no accident. It bounces off walls, it bounces off monsters, it bounces off itself, it bounces off everything. But see, that's a pretty clean trap kill, right? So you could definitely go trap farming. It's physical damage. Physical damage is really good against trap. So is magic damage. So there's a clean trap kill there. Pretty easy. Obviously, Eldritch and Shank are really good too. Looks like he's already come to join us at the waypoint because I leashed him on accident earlier. And there you go. See, it's pretty dang good. And the thing is from here, there's a lot of good upgrades we can get. Like, we could get that rare claw, I could upgrade it, and it could be a lot stronger than this claw. We can find a better rare, or we can craft a better claw. Endgame, a GG amp claw would be pretty insane, with like really high ED from a corruption as well. And then we can even upgrade to a Fury Claw in the meantime, so if I found a Jaw Rune, even using the same base, I could get a ton more damage from a Fury with the Deadly Strike on it as well. You can see Eldritch and Shank, no problem. You could also do Pendle. I'm not going to demo Pendle on hardcore though, I'm still not that tanky. I don't trust Pendle. Pendle sometimes rolls crazy auras, he gets extra strong, he gets like amp. It's Charger zombies do kind of busted damage when they get enough buffs on them, so it's an easy one shot we can always avoid. But just Dragonflight your way across the river. You can definitely kill whatever elites that you want along the way. River is also a max level area, so farming this is really good. Just like the pit, but it's easier to get to, so you can start farming monsters like right away in a max level area compared to the pit where might have to wait a bit. That's a Blood Fist, but we already have 2 of them, and that's not that great. F Flying Knife, hey, that could be a good craft base for a throw barb there, maybe. Alright, here's a good example here. So you have a Fizz immune. Now, because the Fizz immunes are really tanky, when we want to kill a single target, we switch to Sentinel. And you can see there with Decrep on top of Battlecry, the Fizz immune is absolutely shredded. So he was Fizz immune, very tanky type monster too. And he just dies. We have the damage to deal with anything already at this point in the game, which is the Lawbringer, so. Now, you might be wondering how to farm the Lemon the Co. That's a good question. Ouch, that hurt. He's extra strong, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Extra strong hurts. You might be farming where to farm the Lemon the Co. You could farm Nightmare Cows, that's where we got ours. But Hell Countess can also drop it as well.
I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken.
Nightmare Cows, though, dropped us a Lemon and Ist, and we only had to run it like 30 times, so you could definitely spend longer in Nightmare Cows, too, if you want. Players 5 drops in Players 1 difficulty, which is what PD2 is from on default. It's pretty strong. Like, cows are really insane. And then if you go to Hell Countess is also pretty easy on this character as long as you don't get too caught up fighting the ghost monsters in the tower cellar. Gotta watch the archers though, so damage wise, gonna need that block and make sure maybe you at least have some DR. You can definitely prioritize maxing Fade if you don't feel comfortable with your DR yet, and you don't have any DR items, no safety crafts, no string of ears, no anything really. You don't have anything that's decent, you could definitely max Fade before maxing out one of the blades, like Blade Shield. Obviously Blade Shield helps because it procs Life Leech and it procs on striking effects, like in this case Decrep. It actually helps to proc the Decrep, so when I Dragonflight in, it's procking the Decrep for me as well. So that's one of the reasons we want to Dragonflight in, but Dragonflighting in is also faster. And it can help us, it's just good for mobility. So I can kind of like leapfrog across the area. Boom, there you go.
I can't carry anymore.
Not in game. There's a wiki though where you can pull up a RuneWord page and just use the Control F function, Devok. If you type exclamation PD2, you can get a link to that. Do you always target monsters or sometimes walls? Well, see, that's what's really interesting. So not only does this build thrive off of monster density, it thrives off of monster density plus walls. So walls, this build is actually a lot stronger and not an open map because the walls kind of act as an extra monster. So if they hit off of the monsters and then run into the walls, they'll bounce off the walls and subsequently add and multiply your damage as they keep like bouncing off the walls. And so, as you can see, you could totally make an early game Blade Fury Sin. I talked about the progression steps. This is once again hardcore solo self-found, so you could definitely do this on any mode if you can do it on hardcore solo self-found. I mean, it's not official, obviously, solo self-found, but for me, it's unofficial. That's how I'm playing. I'm not going to be trading this season. We're going to see what kind of builds we can play, what kind of content we can do just by picking up items in the game and utilizing our RNGesus and our brains to make builds work. So we'll make hopefully more videos like this and we'll see how it works. Yeah, see, even like a rare claw like this, you might want to pick it up because it could have really high ED and it can have like amp or something. It's not ethereal, so ethereal would be quite a bit better, but do keep in mind that the ethereal damage bonus is not as extreme in PD2, so a non-ethereal claw can still do quite well. And since that one was already elite, it doesn't need to be upgraded, so. Whereas I have to upgrade to get the other one working, so. 30 life large charm. Yeah, I'm going to want to use that when I fix my dex next level. Not yet, though. Alright, Diablo, get out of the star. He's being a pain. Yeah, see, he's stuck now, and he's just like not doing what I want him to do. There we go. Alright, so battle cry for Diablo. One thing to note is that You can't decrep bosses, so that actually is one thing that kind of sucks about Lawbringer. That's where Amp is definitely a bit better. Like on a crafted or a rare Amp Claw would be better, or like a Reaper's Toll, but Sentinel absolutely shreds him. And oh wow. Hey, what do you know? He dropped something cool for the video. A lightsaber or an Azarath. Wonder which one it will be. Let's find out. Lightsaber. Cool. It's really good for, particularly for like lightning paladin builds, so. Also can be pretty decent on an Act 3 mercenary. It's okay. I like it. It's a great choice. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and you learned a lot in this video about how to do this. We talked about all the relevant stats and all the relevant information, so you will understand how to build this effectively. If you're really slow, by the way, also, and you just don't like how slow your claw is and can't get attack speed on the gear, you can definitely use Burst of Speed. But since you are jumping into monsters, Fade is really good. So remember, there's a lot of flexibility with this. You can go a lot of points in a weapon block if you go the 2-claw approach, like with a really strong plus skill offhand. Lots of flexibility with the skills, lots of flexibility with the build. You just kind of have to do whatever you can. And since SSF is a state of survival, particularly when you only have one life, adapting to what you have found and the situation is going to be pretty key to your success. Anyway, GG guys, and see you guys in the next one. Definitely check out the tier list from this season, the Ultimate Farming Guide, that video from last season, which has I've updated the spreadsheet, and of course the Mercenary lightning round where I talk about in-game mercenaries, and also check out all the guides from this season for endgame from the closed beta from 10 and 11. But yeah, see you guys in the next one. Crush it in season 11. Let's get it. Dark Humility over and out.